Are you an overwhelmed SaaS founder ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Well, welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast. I am your host, Jeff Maines. In case you missed it, in last week's episode, I talked with Jim Kane about growing multiple SaaS companies, working with family, creating teams, finding product market fit, and targeting a well-defined market. His company, Red Chirp, has a really unique market space working with regulated industries. So one of my biggest takeaways from last week was what he called conversation enders. It's a super powerful tip. So if you haven't listened to it yet, I highly recommend you check it out. You can look at the show notes to go right to that point in the podcast or listen to the whole thing because it's actually a lot of good things in there, lots of nuggets. That was just one that really stuck out to me. So my guest this week is Andrew Amann, serial entrepreneur and founder of a startup studio called 923. So since co-founding 923 Venture Studio in 2012, Andrew has helped launch countless ventures for clients and emerging companies and turned his business into one of the fastest growing private companies in America on the Inc. 5000 list. Andrew is an experienced intrapreneur and entrepreneur, so inside companies and outside startups on his own. He's responsible for patents on nuclear submarine components. You heard that right, nuclear submarine components. And 3 supply chain innovations. I mean, I take that as this dude is smart. I'm going to listen to him. He successfully launched 12 startups, including the digital business card solution Inigo app acquired by Royalty. Andrew excels at bootstrapping startups without the involvement of venture capital, which I love. And he currently helps businesses grow with innovative web and mobile technology solutions and has built over 50 applications supporting millions of end users, including a unicorn. Today's episode is sponsored by my book, Small Fish, Big Pond, Building a World-Class Business That Swims Circles Around Competitors. So why do some companies achieve explosive growth while others sink into the depths? What do exceptional SaaS companies do that mediocre companies don't? And, what can SaaS leaders learn from fish? Small Fish, Big Pond delivers powerful business lessons guaranteed to change the way you view your business and includes hands-on exercises and growth tools to get lightning-fast results. Get your copy today at smallfishbigpond.com. Use the code SaaSFuel to unlock special bonus content. Well, my guest today is Andrew Amann. So, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about your background. You're a multi-time founder. And so a little bit about the companies you've started and the project that you're working on today.
Sure. So we started 923 Venture Studio in 2012. And so we've been building products for the last 10 years. We built our own product, which was Inigo, and that was our internal venture that was sold in 2016. And from there, we took the team and we continued to build projects for clients. And today we've built 50 client projects and 14 startups. Those 14 startups are ones that we've either internally started ourselves with our own ideas, or entrepreneurs have come to us where we have equity and we're helping the entrepreneur build their vision and their dreams. So of those 14 startups, we've had 2 that have been acquired, and we have 1 that's over 100,000 annual recurring revenue right now. And we're about to launch 2 more in the month of May. And those 2 products that we're launching, one of them is a video recording software for memes on social media, which is a fun one. And then the other one that we're launching is a Spotify for food delivery application.
Wow. That is a really wide diversity of companies launched and applications. So how do you come up with the ideas? How do you iterate that fast?
Yeah, there's 3 cohorts that I like to talk about. At the beginning of the agency, we were young and ambitious, and we came up with all the ideas because we thought we could create a whole bunch of startups and see which ones were growing or becoming successful. And the way that process worked is I'm the dreamer of the team, and I have a co-founder who's a little conservative, but also sees where the risks lie. And I have a board, and there's about 200 ideas of product ideas that we could develop. And I would bounce them off of him, and most of them don't really work because of the timing the execution or the market. But every once in a while, there's that product that you just kind of keep repeating. And you're like, hey, I saw another opportunity that this product could work in. What do you think about X, Y, and Z? And when that starts happening, we start really honing in on how we could build it, and we end up building it. And so, like I said, at the first cohort, we really developed those products from those ideas. But when we got to the second cohort, the second 5 apps we built, we were focusing on other people coming to us with their ideas. They were just on the younger entrepreneur stage. Now, as we've developed as an agency, we're getting those 3-4-time entrepreneurs that have already had exits, and they don't want to go venture backed anymore. They don't want to hire like a CTO. They want to hire a full agency to build their product. And so that's our third cohort, where it's really becoming more successful apps as opposed to, ventures with risks.
That's a smart way to go. I mean, you're working with something that is a known quantity instead of going out and trying to build a team. And it's interesting. You brought your team from the past. I think it's really interesting when that happens. You have a team that goes with you from one company to the next to the next. So Tell me about that.
Yeah, we started in 2012, and it was just myself and my co-founder. And I learned the sales and marketing, and he learned how to develop apps for Android, iPhone, and the web. And we spent about $50,000 in 6 years, or I think it was about 5 years, of our own money. We were really bootstrapped. We were working 2 jobs. We weren't confident that it was really going to be that successful. And as we got towards the end and we started seeing traction, we dove all in and we started hiring teammates. We started helping us scale and grow that product. But in the end, what really mattered is when the person came to us to buy that product, they wanted the assets. They wanted to be able to put those assets into their product. And what we realized is the fun that we had was with the team that we had built in that last year or two. And that team was able to build client projects. We were able to build new ideas. And we started resourcing people from all around the world. And so we've been remote our whole lives. And that team that has really been curated is just a great group of engineers, designers, QA, and project managers that really love working with us and loves iterating on all of our startups.
So what is the secret to successfully working remote? I think all of us have done that to one degree or another over the last few years. Of some with great success, some like you have been doing it for a long time, and others would never, unless they were forced to, have remote teams. And so we've seen them do that as well. What have been the biggest secrets to building that cohesive team, even when you're in different places?
Yeah, I think there's phases of success when you're remote. And the first phase is that you ambitiously want to be remote. And so for us, we were both having kids and we wanted to be home for them. And so we were trying to do whatever it took to make that work. We were working the 2 jobs because we wanted to be remote. And so when we finally were, it didn't matter that there was a right or wrong. It mattered that we were home. And I think that drive is what first matters to wanting to be remote. Once you get a taste of it, then now you got to figure out how to work with a team as a remote company. And I think for us, the first step of that was getting on Slack and being great communicators, but also understanding that people are in different time zones and working around that. And then lastly, I would say the third phase of really enjoying a remote team is if you focus on the procedures and the processes of how a company needs to work remote for them. It's not something you can find online. It's not something you can, pull from a book. You really have to work with who your culture is and how your team operates best, and hire individuals that work within that culture, and then make sure that the procedures and processes that are created for your culture are then being exposed as a remote company.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is that something that you create and you hire people for the culture? Or do you hire people and then they make the culture?
I think at the beginning, the culture comes from who you are and kind of your core morals. And my co-founder and I have the same business morals. We fight on how things are designed or how things should be put into production, but we don't fight on business ethics and business morals.
They're really important.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you have that, there's a core that already is out there in the ether. You just have to write it down. And so it's not hard to get those initial morals into the remote procedures. And then once you do that, you start finding like-minded people that also enjoy working with you, because we have our core morals and we have our understanding of how we're going to run a business. We just need to find those individuals that are like us. And once that core team is formed, I think people gravitate if they have that same type of ethics or morals or uprising, they kind of believe in the same things. And so they see that during the interview process. And so then I think what's happening is the team then curates the culture from there.
That's really interesting. And kind of a chicken or egg, and it's kind of both. So you're building the culture, and then the team is taking that the next step.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the team then creates the culture from there, because what you find is when you start with 10 people, the culture is really formed around the founders.
Sure.
But when you grow to 50, and we're at about 62 right now, there's groups, there's the developers, there's the engineers, there's the project managers, there's all these different groups that are getting formed, and they're working on something in a silo, and there's a culture for the project that they're working on. And I think it's important that there's the core culture, but then you have to adapt and abide to how people are interacting with each other. And so the team then formulates how we should behave, as opposed to us now not dictating, but pushing forward our culture. It's the culture then starts adapting to the team.
That's great. It's a good process. I like that. The team subculture. I think a lot of people don't realize or just don't think about that being the case.
Correct. When you work remote, you end up finding specific countries that work well with you. We found early on that Ukraine was just a phenomenal country to work in our culture. And so we've hired a lot of people from Ukraine. I think it's over 130 at this point over the course of the 10 years. And that culture has a very specific way of understanding business. So a lot of our adaptations and business ethics have been formulated, and we are all becoming aware of how strong Ukrainians are, how resilient they are, how powerful they are, and how outspoken they are. And I think that culture has formulated our company even before the war started.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've done the same thing. Eastern Europe has been fantastic. In Ukraine, Moldova, we've got a really large team there.
Yep.
So exactly. Great people.
Yes, they are some of the best, and we're all here to witness how great they are.
So you've mentioned your co-founder a couple of times. Some people start businesses by themselves. I think co-founders can be really, really good. What have you found to be those synergies, and how did you come together to start this company?
Yeah, the synergy is having the same passion for your family and your retirement and your life and what you want to do on your day in and day out. I joke with my wife that I spend, every day with Pavel, my co-founder, and we probably send 1,000 messages a day, right? Between the two of us or within the projects. And so the amount that I'm communicating with him over the course of a day, never mind a week or a month, is massive compared to how much I'm communicating with my wife. So when you're making that decision early on, you really are looking at a marriage, right? It's the same philosophy. It's somebody you're going to spend 10 years of your life with. And are you interested in doing that with that person? And if not, you need to move on to another co-founder, right? And so Pavel and I have been together for 10 years. We have been through so much together between the war. We've been through COVID together. We both got either laid off or removed from our initial jobs after we first met. Pavel made the decision himself. I got laid off. We've been through marriages. We've been through kids. We've been through deaths. And it's really become this friendship, just over time of growing together and then building a business on top of it and having the same direction of what we want to be in our lives.
I love that. And it is so true. We spend so much time with our coworkers and founders, co-founders, business partners, that having that kind of relationship is super important.
Yes. It's vital to the success of the team, because I think if the team is going to put their time into a company, they want to see the results and the output of I call it their fingerprint, right? They want their fingerprint on the products. They want their fingerprint in the world of things that we're building as a team. And if the founders are supportive of that, that vision, then I think it helps them, and it helps us through recruitment as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. So you've mentioned that the company name 9-to-3, you were originally working, both of you and Pavel were working jobs when you started this. Tell me about the origin of the company name 9-to-3. I love that. Sure.
So in 2014 through 2016, we were both working two jobs. I was a mechanical engineer. I worked on nuclear submarines, and Pavel was working at a company called Profitect in Boston. And so we knew we wanted to do an entrepreneurship and own our own company. And we both independently wanted to know that before we cohesively wanted to do that together. And when we got together, we started creating a product. Like the product was called Inigo, but we started building this without really knowing the output, right? We knew we wanted to be successful. We knew we wanted to work remote, and we knew we wanted to own our own business, but we were just like two kids building apps. And the X product of that, like the thing that came out of that, was we ended up getting pretty successful. We had about 600,000 downloads on that app when we sold it. And you can see the growth basically from when we met to when we sold it. And we had to quit our jobs at the end to make it all work. But as we were building all of this, we were doing two jobs, and the Inigo part came from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. And so Pavel would take a nap at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon after his day job. I just kind of powered through as much as I could. And this was before kids for both of us.
Sure.
So basically, 9 p.m., we'd sit down at our computers, our wives would go to bed, and we'd work for 4 to 6 hours, pretty much 5 years, 7 days a week, weekends included, on this product. And it's brought us to here today. So it's been totally worth it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the story, I think that's just the grind. So many entrepreneurs, the grind, the hustle, and I love that. Instead of just going out and raising money or trying to get somebody else to fund your dream, it's really that grind and hustle of making it happen for yourself. So,
yep.
I mean, have a special place in my heart for bootstrap founders for sure.
Thank you. I like to say the 5-year overnight success, right?
That's a good one. Yeah. So with growing your companies and getting your products out in the marketplace, what have been the best strategies for sales and marketing and driving leads, raising awareness?
I think the two biggest things we've learned is, one, you need to do sales and marketing from day one. That's like, without a doubt, when you're building a product, you really have to think, how is this going to get to the customers? And can you predict the amount of customers you can get in a month or in a year? But the other two things that I was unaware about in our first products, especially when we're building mobile apps, is the power of SEO and the power of Google advertisements. Those two are age-old internet hacks that allow you to grow your business. But when you reverse engineer SEO, you really are creating a long-term business that has no way of failing, right? If you're gathering 100,000 clicks on your website every day, that form of marketing is never going to go away. And so to build that early on and to build the core functionality that creates blogs and content that formulates, as many downloads and clicks as you can get, that's important to start as soon as you release your first product, or as soon as you even think of your idea. But then the Google ads, there's two main marketing channels of Google ads. I mean, I guess they're advertising channels. You got to target your name. So whatever your product name is, just put that into the Google ads, put $10 a day on that, and inform Google that your product exists and what the keywords are. That boosts you better than anything else out in the market. And then retargeting anyone that came to your website for $10 a day, $20 a day, that retarget thing is probably the best marketing tactic I've ever seen for any of our products.
That's really smart. I like that you're actually in control of your lead source when you're doing SEO.
Yes.
So you're not putting it in the hands of some other company that can shut down your ad account and make your leads go away.
Yeah, more importantly, it's the foundation of the internet. It's how Google was built. It's how many companies are found today, is through that search bar. And if you create that foundation in Google or Bing or whatever you're using, you're creating a foundation in which people will continue to find you. And there's the theory of large numbers, but we're not going to wake up today and tomorrow like 10 people buy Microsoft stock and then 1 million buy it the next day. The theory of large numbers means that every day you can kind of predict the volume of how many people buy a stock.
Right.
And it's the same for SEO. Every day there's going to be a certain number of people that have X number of searches, and you need to get in that search.
Oh, that's really good. When you're setting a price for your product, how do you go about doing that? Is it just make something up, or do you look at competitors, or what are the different ways that you could do that in figuring out what is the market price?
Yeah, it's one of those questions that has a long tail understanding of what is the product, what is the market, and how is my pricing going to affect this market or be a part of this market. And so there's different theories on this. And the two theories that I've been talking to people about recently is, one is our theory that the product should be at least $83 a month. And we picked that number because obviously if you do $83 a month for 12 months and you get 1,000 customers, you'll have $1 million ARR. So
Makes sense.
the other part, yeah, exactly. It's an easy number to remember. But the other part of picking $83 a month is that you are selecting a product that has $83 a month of value. You're not picking a $7 product and trying to get 200,000 people for the same $1 million result. You're picking an $83 product that you have to create the value for. So you're building a product in which only needs to suffice 1,000 people using it, as opposed to 200,000 or 300,000 for the same $1 million ARR. But then there's this other part of pricing your products, which is really understanding your competitors and putting yourself in a place to succeed. And when I hear people that say, I'm just going to drop the lowest price and push people to my higher price range, I wonder if that industry already has a low price product that people are aware about, that when you drop your low price, you will not succeed because the high price is no longer worth it. Right? So I think the first part that I was saying of the $83 a month gives you kind of a foundation or a baseline. But the important part is knowing when a customer has options, what are those options? And if they don't select you, where else are they going to go to suffice their needs? And if that pricing point leads them to another product, don't cut yourself short and try to fit within the market.
So then it's not just about dropping the price, but really upping the value.
Yes.
Yeah. So making sure that you're at that 83 or higher, which makes a lot of sense.
Right.
You know, it's a whole lot better to do that than like your $7 product, and because you have to sell so many more.
And the argument that I make is I can know 1,000 customers. I can know them by name. I can recognize the long-term players. I can know 1,000 customers. I cannot know or remember 100,000 customers. And when you have 100,000, your churn rate, let's say it's 10%, you're dropping 10,000 people every single month, right? To pick up another 20,000 to stay profitable. When you have 1,000 people, you drop 10, you drop 20, you pick up another 30. You can recognize the business, you can recognize the health, and you can stay on top of your customer requests without kind of drowning in the noise of them just being a random digit on your computer.
Right. Yeah. When you say losing 10 or 20,000 a month, I mean, that just, just hearing that scares me.
Yeah. When we built the NineTwoThree, that's what was happening. When you get those large numbers, we had 600,000, you'll fluctuate. You'll
Sure.
drop 10,000 people in a month and it won't blink an eye because you're getting 20,000 downloads a month. Right. And those numbers, they get so large, I don't even know who the people are in that number. I just know that 20,000 is coming next month and we need to keep that number higher. But when you have 1,000, you're like, hey, Joey and Jimmy and Timmy are canceling. They've been a customer of ours for like 6 months.
Right.
Let's go call them. Let's go find out why. Let's learn about our business. And when 20,000 drop, you're like, what trend line changed this month? Not who is or what is the reason.
Right. And that would make it a whole lot harder, I think, to really identify what the root causes are, the things that you need to do or improve or change in your product.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're talking to customers, you understand why they're there, what they're paying for. But when you have the 10,000, you just care about how do you churn the little dial or turn it just a little bit to make it a little bit more successful. And I love the idea of talking to customers and calling them and knowing them.
That's where the real value is. And if they're paying that $83 a month, what would you say needs to be the multiple in the value that they get every month out of the solution?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because are you solving time? Are you solving a money problem? Are you solving a production problem? Are you helping them help other people? Right? The value is always intrinsic on who they are as a person and why they came to your product. A lot of SaaS products are just saving 2% of a salesperson's day. And 2% of that day, if they didn't have your product, is important. But is it the end of the world? I don't know. Right? We run a product called Alter Live, which is replacing how churches do Zoom. And I think if they lose our product, they have training, they have 40 or 50 people in a community that have learned how to use the software. They're running their most precious day on Sundays to make sure that the software works. That's a tough loss, right? And the value of that could be thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So it depends on the product. It depends on what you're offering and what value the customer sees in you.
We're going to take a quick sponsor break. And when we come back, we're going to ask Andrew about, of all the innovations and ideas that he's seen, what are the common threads of the ones that are super successful and the ones that maybe fall a little bit flat? After this.
Today's episode is sponsored by Small Fish, Big Pond, building a world-class business that swims circles around competitors. Why do some companies achieve explosive growth while others sink into the depths? What do exceptional SaaS companies do that mediocre companies don't? What can SaaS leaders learn from fish? Small Fish, Big Pond delivers powerful business lessons guaranteed to change the way you view your business and includes hands-on exercises and growth tools to get lightning-fast results. Get your copy today at smallfishbigpond.com and use the code SaaSFuel to unlock special bonus content.
And we're back here on SaaS Fuel. My guest, Andrew Amann, three-time founder and CEO of 9to3. And we're talking about what makes apps successful and trends that he's seen, innovations. I mean, evaluated hundreds and hundreds, and would you say thousands maybe of innovations?
And there, I don't know if I'd say thousands yet, but definitely in the hundreds.
Hundreds, high hundreds, maybe thousands. And so what are the trends, or what are the things that you see, the common threads of something that is successful in an idea and makes a great app or software application versus some of those other ones that kind of flop?
Sure. So when we get a lot of bids, like you're saying, I think the trend that we're seeing recently is the focus on community. We've gotten a lot of interest in building community apps, whether it's like a copycat of Facebook groups. I talked a little bit about Altar Live, which is a community for like a faith community. But we're also getting interest in restaurants that are trying to figure out how to interact with their influencers, not using social media and not using like paid advertisements. Really focused on, the people that are coming to the restaurants and how can they enhance their lives. We're also seeing a lot of trends in people trying to build machine learning algorithms. I think we're realizing that we're holding on to a lot of data, and a lot of businesses are trying to determine how the anomalies in that data can help make better business decisions. And so we're getting a lot of interest in, sorting information quicker, trying to find anomalies in data quicker. Like there's a few people that have been interested in real estate, trying to determine how the housing market is moving. And because we are starting to store data at a very cheap price, I think a lot of people are now trying to show interest in extracting the information at the right time. And then for the metaverse and things, as an app company, you kind of have three futuristic directions. We hope mobile apps stay around for a long time. And I think foldable phones are really going to be that catalyst that changes the app landscape into a combination of like a laptop/mobile phone that fits in your pocket. And so I think as app developers, we have to start focusing on how foldable phones are going to interact with our lives, including wearables like watches. I think there's going to be detachable watches that come off your wrist and be a part of your phone, right? And that's how you charge it. You can switch the displays out and utilize these foldable phones in a way that we can't even really imagine yet, because we haven't seen the possibilities of, basically think about folding a laptop down to something that fits in your pocket.
Wow.
And I'm also interested to figure out what the next input device is. Voice doesn't have its full place yet in our society. We shout at Alexa and Google Home, and I'm sure something's going to go off in my house as I say.
Right. I'm looking to see if mine's going to light up.
Yeah. The voice is great for certain instances, and our 10-finger typing is great for other instances. But I'm curious to see where we can start using our minds and kind of maybe our eyes or the placement of our eyes to do other input devices to make our lives easier.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. We're definitely sitting on just mountains and mountains of data to be mined. So I think that's a really interesting use case with machine learning. And how is like manufacturing background fed into that and the machine learning and how that works?
It's really shaped our leads that have come into our company. In the last year, we focused heavily on trying to find leads that fit to our culture. And we've hired a lot of really smart engineers. Like our developers are just these really grinding and smart engineers. And that, to keep them educated and to keep them, kind of on top of their game, they don't want to be building social media apps all day long. They want the challenges. And Pavel and myself, both coming from manufacturing backgrounds, have found that there's a lot of challenging applications in supply chain and solving supply chain problems. And I think our engineers appreciate those challenges of moving products around a shop floor or trying to understand how our mobile app can fit with an IoT product, so connecting to a device or connecting to a watch or a camera. We've done all those types of things in the last few years. And when we get on a sales call, I can talk about bill of material breakdowns. I can talk about how, upstream and downstream interactions can happen. But I can also talk about why it's important to understand how a Bluetooth technology can interact with a piece of hardware, because I've done it before. I have patents in the space. I've worked on nuclear submarines where we were physically doing that. And I think that expertise helps sell products. And I think when you're talking to a bunch of different app companies, you come to us and you're like, oh, like these guys know manufacturing. I think it not only helps the sales, but then it helps our engineers work on hard problems.
That makes sense. Do you see apps continuing like they are? Do you see more of a blend with web technologies, or getting closer to that, or further away?
If there was no gatekeeper, so if Apple and Google didn't restrict the use of their apps to be inside of their walled gardens, I think we'd all be using web apps today. There are certain functionalities that cannot be done in an actual native application, location tracking and things like that. But for the most part, the apps you use on your phone could have been fine running in the browser for the most part. 5G is really opening up the doors to having fast internet all the time on your phone, low latency, and the capabilities of sending information back and forth. We don't have to trick the phones about storing something local, then sending it to the cloud later when you have availability, or being restricted on your data plans, right? All of those restrictions have led us towards this app that needs to do all of these in-house manipulations to ensure that the user is getting the right results with their cellular network. But with 5G and with, I think the push of faster internet web apps, we're going to see a little bit of a blending. It's just the matter, is Apple and Google going to allow us to interact with an iOS app that's also a web app? Like, are they going to allow us to combine those?
Yeah. And I think that's interesting, just, the walled garden concept. Are you in favor of, having a more open operating system where it is, more freedom for the developers?
I'm not sure about that. I like the way they operate because it does provide a steady business. When you do have a walled garden like that, you support the concept of similarities in libraries. And I think those similarities allow us to build consistent applications for customers, regardless of kind of use cases.
It's predictable.
Yeah. It's reliable, it's scalable. You understand, you can kind of repeat your processes and make promises to customers that you fully understand. And Google and Apple have done a great job of supporting that by always keeping those libraries updated. I think Android even supports back to like 4.6. Right. And we all know the famous Microsoft stories. They've supported back to like Windows 3.1 or whatever. Right.
Right.
And I think those are important. I think it's good that these operating systems understand that the developers are developing for their customers. But I don't know if you took the walled gardens off, what will happen. It's kind of one of those dynamic situations, or like black swan situations, where we don't really know the result until we're actually in it and we see how the marketers are going to kind of mess it up.
Right.
And then we can kind of fall into place.
Leave it to those marketers to mess it all up, right?
Yeah. You give them anything and they'll at least find a way to find a hack around it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's what we do.
You're good at it.
So as you've built multiple companies, what are some lessons that you've learned along the way? And things, if you go back to the beginning and tell yourself one thing, what would that be?
Yeah, startups are hard. Startups are really hard. The products that you're trying to build, they take a lot of work and they take a lot of sales and marketing. Finding a product market fit is never easy. You always think you have a few customers in mind, and if you could just solve for those customers, another 100 will come. But it is a constant grind to not only go from 0 to 1, but from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3. If you don't have venture-backed money, you're constantly weighing the fact of how much should I put into this, to how much time am I, physically putting into this, to what is my reward. And those factors, without a venture-backed concept, allows you to, it doesn't allow you, but it like restricts your ability to grow as an individual, because you're balancing all three. Going back, I wish I would have told myself to remain humble as a consultant. Remain humble as like an apprentice, and don't be ashamed to walk into an office or a place and say, can you employ me? if I just help you, right? Can I just work for you? Can I help you? I have an idea of how your business can run better, smarter, faster, but I'm not going to pitch that now. I'm going to pitch that I want to learn how your business works and see if my idea can still operate within your business. And I think if we did that earlier on with our agency, we would have seen more leads earlier on that were just interested in us learning from them and then saying like, now you've learned my business, can you help me solve my problem? Or one of our original ideas, we would be able to put into the ether and say, can we build this alongside with you?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I love collaborative projects like that.
Yeah, exactly. And if we learned that earlier on, I think we would have been in higher collaborative states now. We're starting to get there. We're starting to get better. People that are coming to us are 4 or 5 time entrepreneurs. So we're there. But if we had learned this earlier on, we would have seen that success at year 5 or year 6. And now we would be building these collaborative projects that have lifelong effects.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's great. It's not something I've heard probably anybody else say. It's just that humility. Back in the beginning. And I think that's a really important thing, being able to go in, not, here I am, I know everything, but, really, understanding first and then adding value along the way. I think that's brilliant.
I think the reason why you don't hear that is when you're an entrepreneur, you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk or Seth Godin, or, now it's Naval that everybody's listening to. And the story that they're telling us is, get venture backed, get as much money as possible, go on TechCrunch, announce your valuation, and then say that you're the CEO of the company and that you're growing this multi-million-dollar business, and then see if you can get an exit. But that isn't for everybody, and it's also not for every product. Our style is like, I want to be home. I want to be with my family. I want to have a good life. Like, I want to be able to work when I want to work, but I also want to be able to be at home when I want to be at home. And if you have those two separate visions, you can't interact the two. Right. And I think if you focus on the family, you're like, hey, how can I help people so that I can just be happy, right? Because if I'm going to help you, I'm going to eventually get a return on reciprocation, as opposed to if I'm building a venture-backed company in some sort of TechCrunch article, I'm constantly trying to figure out how to get more growth at all costs.
Right.
So I think that's the difference, is why you don't hear that story, because I think society pushes entrepreneurs into get money, get growth, and tell people how awesome your growth is.
And that happens a lot. My philosophy, we want to see growth, but I think the philosophy of getting there is very different. And, with Bootstrap, it's not about just going out and raising a bunch of money and telling everybody how awesome you are, but actually creating real value. In a way that's profitable, that's sustainable, that adds something back to the community. And that's where the value comes. That's where the exit comes. And you do get there, but it's just a very different path, very different philosophy. And I think what you build is really different. If you're building for quarterly gains versus building for your clients and adding value to them and making their lives better, 2 completely different things.
Correct. And my favorite stories is the local guy that has figured out how to power wash, everybody's houses in town. And he's, going on every single house, and you keep seeing his signs everywhere. Those are the successful stories where you're like, he hustled, he figured it out, but he's not gloating on the newspapers or the tech crunches, but he's more successful. He's happy. He goes home every day at 5 o'clock. He hangs out with his kids, right?
Right.
That is success to me, of that freedom, as opposed to like getting your face on a tech crunch.
Right. Yeah. Different definitions of success, I guess, for different people of, why they're building and what they're doing.
Exactly.
So product market fit is something we've talked about several times and seems really elusive sometimes for entrepreneurs. How do you know when you have product market fit? What is it? And how do we keep it?
Yeah, the first thing I've learned is product market fit exists at different points in your product journey. And you could have product market fit for $1,000 a month product, and then you never can get to $5,000 a month, because that's a different type of product market fit. As you grow your customer base, you're going to constantly start with the early adopters, the people that find you and want to take a risk on you. And your product market fit might be to adhere to them, the features, the subset, the advertising. You might want to attract those early adopters. But as you get to the mid-range, you're going to want to increase your prices, and you're going to want to increase your customer base, to pay more a month or to have a longer lifetime value. That's a different type of product market fit. And it might not even be in the same ballpark as your original product market fit. You might have to change the structure of your company. You might have to change the entire web page to advertise a small feature set as opposed to the entire feature set. And as your product continues to grow past the 10,000, 20,000 monthly recurring revenue, you're going to discover that you might be an enterprise first company. I mean, HubSpot's a famous example. Their product market fit, when they went public, I think they had 10,000 customers, or there was like 100,000 customers paying $10,000 a month. That is like a small number of customers for a public company.
It is.
But $10,000 a month means a massive commitment. And if we all realized that in 2015 or whatever, that was their market share, we all would have been millionaires, because we would have jumped on that bandwagon and been like, if those 10,000 people just grow to, if those 100,000 people just grow to 1 million, the 100,000 original people are never going to quit. They're paying money. It's an enterprise contract. But prior to that, when HubSpot started, they were doing the onesies, twosies, sign up for my product. I'll give you this $5 feature. You'll have it for free for 95 days, right? They started just like we all do. And now you look at HubSpot's product market fit, they are a replacement for Salesforce. And that's the product market fit. But that wasn't the case 5 years ago. You couldn't do anything in HubSpot that replicated Salesforce. Now they're looking like they can overtake Salesforce because their product market fit has changed. So I think as you grow as an entrepreneur, you have to understand what the next level is, what the next plateau is, and how to achieve that product market fit is just as important as the current one you're in.
And that kind of leads me back to one of the things you mentioned early on was the board that you have with 200 ideas and what may fit now. What I thought was really interesting is you don't just take ideas off of there and go, this is not a good idea and we're not going to do it, but they stay there. And so maybe it's a not now thing. So you're picking things off of there that are now and some that may be later, but some of those things may spur ideas for other products, 2 or 3 iterations down the line. So how do you manage the board, and how do you know what to take off of there for now versus later?
Yeah, sure. It is a Notion board. It has, about 200 on it. And I think it's important. The ideation phase is a muscle. You constantly have to practice the concept of thinking of how something will work in a marketplace and figuring out the risks that product will have if it was released. Then determining, is it still a good idea? And if not, how can I modify or adjust the original offering to make it work for a different subset of people? One that I just saw yesterday, on this board, I was glazing it last night, was a product for ranking your app based on the, let's say there's a stock price, right? So like Microsoft, Snapchat, Instagram, all those, and relating that app store ranking to the stock price.
Interesting.
Now, the reason why I just thought about this again is I was looking at Zoom. Zoom has not changed in 25 years. Since they've been founded. They have not changed a single icon or UI. It's white screens everywhere with silly blue buttons in the middle of the screen. And they have all this opportunity. And before the pandemic, you probably could have predicted by the download rate that their stock price was going to follow suit. Nowadays, you can probably see that Zoom's download rates are dropping and their stock price is dropping. And I wonder if there's a correlation that you can predict or adjust to figure out, all right, their downloads, like Snapchat, went up, 20%. I'm just guessing. Maybe their stock is going to follow suit. And maybe there's already an idea out there that does this. But as I was looking at Zoom, I thought of the idea that I had about rating apps and their growth in the App Store based on their stock price.
I love that. Yeah. I love ideas like that are connecting things that are not obvious.
Right.
So, stock price versus app downloads is just not a correlation a lot of people make. So, but there would be value in something like that, being able to predict.
Exactly. I mean, there's intrinsic value. You could definitely make money on it, but there's also just the cool concept of these up and coming apps that will start getting momentum. And you're like, hey, I wonder how this app, why people are downloading it. What is their product market fit? And you're like, we can build something similar to that, or we can compete against that, or that's already competing against one of ours.
Right.
So I think there's value in those too.
Yeah, that's really good. So the concept of a startup studio, which we mentioned right at the very beginning, tell me about a startup studio and how is that different than maybe other other app builders that you would see out there in the marketplace?
Sure. So we became a startup studio just because we started defining ourselves as a startup studio. I am now learning that there's a whole bunch of other startup studios. And when I say a whole bunch, GSM did a research, GSSM, and they only found about 100 official startup studios. So there's not, hundreds or thousands of us in the world.
I'd love to compete in a market where there's only 100 competitors.
I know, right? I know. And they're not competitors as much as they're like people to learn from,
Sure,
because we're all so different. And what a startup studio really is the concept of building something repeatedly over a set period of time and using the same resources to build that widget, right? So a factory is a supply chain, and they're building a widget from raw material all the way to the shelves, right? And sometimes they send it to different factories, but that process, they can get better, more efficient, and it will save them time, and they'll be able to create more money from that, but they'll also be able to create more value for their product. A startup studio does the same thing. We understand how our product is built, and we have the team around us to build that product iteratively. And because that team has done this, 50 times for clients and 14 times for ourselves, we've held on to those resources and those teammates. And when we see a new product come through the door, we can use the similarities of everything else we've used in our past to build faster, more efficient, and a more scalable product than you would get if you were to try to build this from scratch. And I think the best example is when you think of an entrepreneur trying to start a company, they have the option of going venture back. They have the option of going to an incubator or an accelerator. There's this new concept that is really us, which is a startup studio, where they don't need to hire a team themselves. They don't need to handpick engineers, developers, scientists, project managers. They can just focus on the sales and marketing and product market fit, and they can hire basically a startup in a box that's going to build their product. And as they focus on finding product market fit, they know that they're going to meet us at a specific date with a ready to go product that will scale, that will not break, and that will be beautifully designed. And I think when you marry that up, entrepreneurs are starting to realize, especially people that have done it before, there's more equity in it for them. There's more growth possibility for them, and they get a set price. They know exactly what they have to raise. They know exactly what they need to set aside for the studio. But then at the end of the day, they get a partner and they get a friend that's going to be with their product for the rest of their life. That's
really nice. I think it's a really good concept, and it would not surprise me if we see some companies here in the near future go public that essentially have no employees. That they've worked with a startup studio like this. They brought a product to market. They've sold, and got users out there, and they're at a point where they can IPO and essentially have no debt. Their cap table is really clean, and they've got a great product, and they're really benefiting as owners and serving the community as well.
Right. And I agree. And the only argument I'd make is that if you are finding those individuals, they're mostly happy with the success that they've had. They have a lot of equity. IPO is not even part of their future. They have a product that's creating value on itself. They're able to pay everybody that works for the company. They're able to extract additional profits every single month or year. The investors, even if they had small-time investors, are getting their returns as well in the form
everybody's happy.
Or royalties. Yeah, it's like everybody's happy in this situation. IPO just sounds like a lot of stress.
That doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe they just sit where they are. And, you see some businesses do this. Like the guys I was talking to at Dentally, they built a CRM for dentists, and they have almost the entire European market, secured. They can grow, they can be better and stronger and faster, but they can also be very happy with what they've achieved and continue to steadily provide, enough support for their customers to keep their customers happy, right? And it's those types of businesses that maybe don't need to IPO and that just keep the entrepreneurs happy.
There are a lot of advantages to being private.
Yes, yes, that too.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, it's been a great pleasure talking with you today. Where can people learn more about you and 9to3 online?
Sure. So I'm very heavily involved in Twitter. That's where I go to get my news. That's where I go to chat with people that I meet at conferences. So Andrew Amann, my handle is @AndrewAmann. And then our website is 923.co, and it's spelled out with the letters. So NineTwo. THRE. And then for the most part, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do so. But our team is based out of Ukraine, and we're supporting their safety right now. We're supporting their needs. And I know, Jeff, you have people in Ukraine as well. We're thinking about them constantly. So if you are coming to any of our social media sites, you'll see donation links, supportive links, and things like that to help the team and help the troops over in Ukraine.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. And we will link all of those in the show notes, including places where you can donate to Ukrainian relief.
We appreciate that.
Work a lot with Novo Ukraine. Been fantastic. I think you guys do as well.
We do. Same one. Yep.
So we'll link all of that in the show notes. And again, thank you, Andrew. It was great having you on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for the insightful questions.
Thanks again to Andrew for coming on the show and sharing his insights and resources. You can learn more about Andrew and check out his company at 923.co and check them out on all social media. I mean, these are the guys to go hit up if you're looking to build and either don't have a team or need special skills to complement the team that you do have. These guys are fantastic. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. One special link I want to give mention to is our friends at Nova Ukraine, and that's novaukraine.org. You'll see it in the show notes. These guys are the real deal and doing a huge service with the war right now in Ukraine, providing meals and medical care and supplies, first aid, and refugee support. So continue to pray for our brothers and sisters and friends and employees in Ukraine, Moldova, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and all of the affected countries in Eastern Europe and beyond. Lots of countries over there are serving refugees. So donate to organizations like Nova Ukraine, fantastic organization. But continue to donate, pray, and take some time and thank God for the freedom and peace that we enjoy and often take for granted here. So as a reminder, if you're enjoying the show, leave a rating or review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. Let me know what you think and give me your feedback. I'll be sure to read those out on a future episode. Tune in next week for our conversation with Today Bogatai, a SaaS founder who has innovated in the e-commerce space with huge results for businesses with his company, CartBoss. So until next week, we meet again. Enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.